Hello there and welcome to World News Program, streaming to you live on All 24 News. I'm your host, Christopher Zachary, and up next are the headlines. Over 37 Palestinians were killed in a single day as Zionist massacres continue, and a heartwarming rescue amidst the genocide. Stay with us to find out about how Al-Auda Hospital saved a fetus from its fallen mother. UN Secretary General sends ICJ advisory opinion on occupation to General Assembly, and Algeria hails the move as a major win for Palestine and pledges continued support. That's next. Also coming up, Zionist raids hit energy facilities in Yemen's Hudaydah. Casualties were reported, and Houthi group promises a stronger retaliation in support of Palestine. And pressure builds on Biden to exit 2024 race as polls plummet and Trump gains ground. What's next for the Democrats before next month's convention? Stay tuned to find out right after the break. Hello again and welcome to the details. First off in our news file, the Gaza Strip has witnessed a tragic escalation. In fact, over the past 24 hours, Zionist occupation forces have carried out 4 massacres, resulting in the death of 37 Palestinians and leaving 54 others injured. The Palestinian Ministry of Health reports the overall toll of this ongoing genocidal war has now reached 38,919. with 89,622 wounded since the aggression began on October 7th of last year. Still with the same file, Zionist occupation forces actually bombed the city of Rafah and Borage camp. In the Gaza Strip, 2 Palestinians were martyred and several others injured in these attacks. In Rafah, an occupation march targeted the Oraiba area, killing 2 citizens. Meanwhile, 4 children were injured by a drone strike while on the roof in the Borage camp. And on Saturday, Palestinian Civil Defense Service in Gaza actually recovered the bodies of 5 martyrs from a Zionist bombing at the Nusayrat camp in the central Gaza Strip. The intensified attacks from Friday night to Saturday led to at least 5 casualties in the area.
بعد ما تم انتشال ما يقارب 6 ل 7
We have extracted 5 to 6 martyrs from the rubble and 2 injured. Our teams now are searching for missing people, as the owners of this house claim that 2 people are still missing. The house of the Ayad family was targeted by rockets from warplanes. There are a large number of victims and wounded. According to the latest updates, there are 5 martyrs and 7 wounded who were transferred to Sheikh Radwan Hospital. The situation here is difficult. Most of them were under the rubble. We have pulled out children, women and elderly people.
And in a touching development, doctors of Al-Auda Hospital in northern Gaza saved a fetus born early on Saturday from the womb of its mother, Ola Aden Al-Kurd. More details with Zahra Farjani in this report.
In one of the most brutal acts of the Zionist genocide in Gaza, a child is born orphaned without a mother, who was martyred in a Zionist airstrike that targeted her home in the Nusayrat refugee camp in the northern sector. Ola Adnan Al-Kurd, a Palestinian woman who was 9 months pregnant, was martyred but gave birth to a baby through a cesarean section in the emergency and trauma department at Al-Auda Hospital in Nusayrat during early hours of Saturday morning.
من بين الشهداء امرأة حامل
Among the martyrs was a pregnant woman. This woman was only a survivor 4 months ago when her home was targeted. This woman was the only one who survived among her family at the time.
The newborn, named Majd, will spend weeks, possibly months, in an artificial incubator at Al-Aqsa Maraz Hospital in Deir al-Balah in the central region of the Gaza Strip.
Today she was targeted as she was pregnant in her 9th month, and she was martyred after being targeted by the occupation army. An immediate operation was performed at Auda Hospital after this mother was martyred. The infant now is at the incubator's department, and he started his life as an orphan who has no mother.
Due to the frequent power outages and the scarcity of medical supplies in the government hospital, Majd might face the fate of many infants and children who have died here due to the malnutrition and poor health services. If it's this baby's fate to live his life orphaned without his mother, his survival affirms the Palestinians' tenacity for life and their defiance against the Zionist killing machine that continues to exterminate children and women.
And on Saturday, Gaza's local authorities warned displaced residents that the Zionist occupation forces are targeting those who evacuate their homes. They stressed that no areas in Gaza are safe, as the occupation has intensified psychological pressure with numerous voice messages urging people to move south. Authorities also pointed out that even tents in designated safe zones are not protected from the attacks. Still with the same file, the Zionist entity continues to violate international law by targeting mosques in the Gaza Strip. Despite protections for places of worship, these sites are being bombed and desecrated continuously. The Palestinian Endowments Authority reports that nearly 1,000 mosques and prayer halls have been destroyed. More details with Salman Asif now.
Since the start of genocidal war on the Gaza Strip, these Zionist attacks have destroyed more than 1,000 mosques, according to local authorities. This is how the Zionist occupation pours out its malice and hatred on the mosques of Deir al-Balah, deliberately targeting them almost daily with destructive war missiles, ignoring all religious considerations and international conventions that prohibit the violation of the places of worship.
Here you see the mosque. Since the beginning of the war, people stopped praying in this mosque. When it was bombed, people had not prayed in it for 2 months, not daily prayers or Friday prayers. Now we suffer when we go for Friday prayers.
Violations have made it difficult for Palestinians to find water to bath and perform ablution for the ritual prayer. When water is available, they are forced to walk long distances under the bombardment in order to find a hall or a tent to pray in.
The biggest problem is water. There is no water. Someone wants to wash before prayers, and there are also no clothes to wear. In the past, we used to wake up early on Friday, then shower and put on a white gown and perfumes. Today, there are no mosques at all. You will have to walk for an hour and a half or 1 hour to reach a tent where prayers are held. In a tent. Most of the mosques were bombed. When people want to go for prayers, they have to wash before. There are some mosques where there are calls for prayers, and there is nothing inside, and they are empty.
Amidst the deadly Zionist offensive in the Strip, more than 100 Muslims were killed according to Gaza's Ministry of Endowment and Religious Affairs, including several administrative buildings and Quranic schools were destroyed in the Zionist onslaught. It has also destroyed at least 60% of the Strip's infrastructure through repeated targeting of hospitals, schools, universities, and more than 100 heritage sites.
To some international reactions now, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced that a permanent ceasefire in Gaza might be just around the corner. Speaking at the Balco Laurent Forum, Blinken stated that the U.S. is close to finalizing an agreement between the parties involved, which would include a ceasefire and the return of prisoners.
I believe we're inside the 10-yard line and driving toward the goal line and getting an agreement that would produce a ceasefire, get the hostages home, and put us on a better track to trying to build lasting peace and stability.
Deputy spokesman for the UN Secretary General Farhan Haq announced that Antonio Guterres will soon present the International Court of Justice's advisory opinion on the occupation's illegal consequences to the UN General Assembly, I'm saying. Guterres reiterated his call for all parties to engage in a political process to end the occupation and resolve the conflict, emphasizing that the two-state solution remains the only viable path.
Of all journalists in Russia who are detained solely for doing.
Secretary General Antonio Guterres will immediately transmit the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice on the legal consequences of the policies and practices of the occupying entity in the occupied Palestinian territory, including the occupied Al-Quds, to the 193-member UN General Assembly, and it's up to the General Assembly to decide how to proceed.
And in another reaction, Algeria has praised the International Court of Justice's advisory opinion as crucial step in addressing the conflict's core issue, the annexation of Palestinian lands. The Algerian Foreign Ministry condemned these violations as threats to the Palestinian National Project and the two-state solution. Algeria reaffirmed its commitment through its Security Council role to support Palestinian statehood with East al-Quds as its capital, vital for regional stability. In another reaction on Friday, the International Court of Justice declared that the presence of the Zionist entity in Palestinian territories is illegal and must end as soon as possible. Although advisory and non-binding, this historic decision is seen as a significant diplomatic victory for the Palestinian cause and provides the UN with a new tool to exert pressure on the occupying entity.
The necessity for the Zionist entity to end as soon as possible its illegal occupation of the lands it occupied in 1967, the illegality of the settlements in the West Bank, and to stop their construction and remove all the settlers from the occupied Palestinian territories, the necessity for the Zionist entity to pay compensation for all material and moral losses and damages suffered by natural and legal individuals.
Meanwhile, the European Union's Special Envoy for the Middle East peace process, Sven Koopmans, has reaffirmed his commitment to advancing the two-state solution. In a press statement on Saturday, Koopmans highlighted the urgent need to end the suffering in Gaza and restart the peace process. He also criticized the continued blockage of humanitarian aid to Gaza and the ongoing settlement expansion and violence in the West Bank, stressing these issues must be addressed to avoid a regional and wider conflict. And finally, in this file, on Saturday, cities around the world saw widespread demonstrations in support of Palestine. In Paris, thousands protested to call for Israel's exclusion from the upcoming Olympic Games. Copenhagen and Athens saw rallies demanding an end to the aggression against Gaza, while Helsinki hosted a supportive bicycle match. Additionally, Salzgitter, Istanbul, Helsingborg, and Uppsala all held marches urging an end to the violence in Gaza. To other topical news now, Yemeni media citing Houthi officials reported that Israeli airstrikes hit oil storage facilities and an electricity plant in Hodeidah on Saturday. The Yemeni Ministry of Health linked to the Houthis confirmed casualties, including severe burns, but did not specify numbers. This raid follows a Houthi attack on Jaffa in the occupied Palestinian territories. The Houthis vowed to retaliate, asserting that the strike will only strengthen their support for the Palestinian people and their resolve against the Zionist entity.
شن العدو الإسرائيلي
The Israeli enemy launched a ruthless aggression on Hodeidah province, targeting with several raids the power station that provides electricity to the coastal city of Hodeidah, as well as the port of Hodeidah and fuel tanks, all of which are civilian targets. The Yemeni armed forces confirmed that they will respond to this flagrant aggression, and with the help of Almighty Allah, they will not hesitate to strike the vital targets of the Israeli enemy, while reiterating what was stated in their previous statement regarding the occupied Jaffa as an unsafe area.
In a connected story on Saturday, the British Maritime Trade Operations Authority reported attacks on two commercial ships off the coast of Yemen. One missile strike hit a cargo ship 83 nautical miles southeast of Aden, while another targeted a vessel 64 nautical miles northwest of Mocha. Additionally, British maritime security company Ambre is investigating an incident 61 nautical miles west of Hodeidah. To other developments now, but this time in Africa. Algeria has called for the activation of the African Humanitarian Agency to address humanitarian issues across the continent with an African-led approach. Speaking at the 45th summit of the African Union Executive Council in Accra, Ghana, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf emphasized the need for solidarity and independence in light of the growing conflicts in Africa.
Our belief that the desired added value lies in activating the African Humanitarian Agency is reflected in establishing a purely African approach to addressing humanitarian issues. This approach stems from the African reality and aligns with the rapidly escalating conflicts and crises in our continent. It also elevates the values of solidarity and mutual support that are the foundation of the African Unity Project.
Similarly, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf highlighted the importance of coordinating the African Humanitarian Agency with other African Union mechanisms focused on humanitarian issues. Let's listen.
ضرورة ضمان تنسيق وثيق وتكامل فعال.
There is a necessity to ensure close coordination and effective integration between the African Humanitarian Agency and the various mechanisms of the African Union. These mechanisms are responsible for responding to humanitarian crises, foremost among them being the mechanism for civil and continental capacities for disaster preparedness and response. We support the proposal presented by the Commission regarding the composition of the organizational structure of this humanitarian agency, and we call for the acceleration of establishing regional centers for this agency, equipping them with the necessary logistical and financial resources.
وتزويدها بالإمكانيات اللوجستية والمالية الضرورية.
Still with the same story, at the African Union Summit in Accra, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf met with counterparts from 7 African countries. He discussed key issues with South Africa's Ronald Lamola, regional developments with Nigeria's Yusuf Matima Tugar, and UN Security Council coordination with Sierra Leone's Timothy Musekaba. Mr. Attaf also addressed regional and continental matters with Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Congo, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, focusing on enhancing cooperation. In Accra on Saturday, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf met with Egypt's Badr Adel Atti and Namibia's Pia Mochelenga. Attaf and Abdel Atti discussed upcoming African Union issues and enhancing bilateral relations through increased political and economic cooperation. With Mochelenga, Mr. Attaf agreed to continue coordination on key African and international issues and to further advance bilateral ties. Pressure is increasing on U.S. President Joe Biden to withdraw from the presidential race against former President Donald Trump following a decline in his poll numbers. This development is setting up various scenarios ahead of the Democratic National Convention from August 19th to the 22nd. More with Safian Kanturi in this report now.
US President Joe Biden confirmed Friday he plans to seek a second term amid growing dissent within his Democratic Party. Speculation about a possible withdrawal before the weekend has sparked concern among the party members, questioning his viability. Biden addressing criticism, vowed to resume his campaign next week and criticized the rival Donald Trump's pessimistic outlook during the Republican convention. However, his determination contrasts with the calls from 6 House Democrats and 1 senator urging him to step down, citing concerns over his health and declining popularity in polls. Since a widely criticized presidential debate with Trump, approximately 25 House Democrats and 3 senators have publicly called for Biden's withdrawal. Polls following debate suggest Trump gaining ground, heightening pressure on Biden. Reports surfaced Thursday suggesting private concerns from prominent Democrats, including former President Barack Obama and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, about Biden's candidacy, intensifying pressure.
I think the recent polling was something like 3/4 of polled Democrats would like to see Biden step down. But what that doesn't get at is, well, if Biden stays in the race, are those Democrats really are they going to stay home? Are they going to vote for former President Trump? Probably not, right? So the bigger concern is that it's going to be a drag on turnout for the Democrats.
Biden, who became the oldest president in the U.S. history after defeating Trump in 2020, now contends with health concerns and polls indicating Trump's resurgence, particularly in crucial swing states pivotal in the electoral college system.
And in another world development, on Saturday, the Bangladesh government imposed a nationwide curfew and deployed military forces to restore order after violent clashes over public service recruitment rules. The curfew will be briefly lifted for 2 hours to allow people to shop and complete essential tasks. Protests triggered by a quota system favoring veterans' families have resulted in at least 105 deaths and thousands of injuries, with tensions sharply escalating this week.
My nephew was an innocent kid. Why did they kill him in such a brutal way? He was only an intermediate student.
This illegal government is trying to uproot students. Every moment injured students are coming in this hospital. No local media is covering this properly.
And in northern China, at least 11 people were killed when a highway bridge collapsed due to heavy rains and flash floods. The bridge, which spans a river in Shanglu and Shanxi province, fell on Friday. Rescue teams are searching for about 30 people still missing, according to Xinhua and CCTV. In a different development now, the technical committee for the Paris Olympics has unveiled details of the opening ceremony on July 26th for the first time. The event will take place outdoors along the Seine River, lasting over 3 hours. More than 7,000 athletes will participate, traveling on 85 boats and ships across a 6-kilometer route, featuring 12 artistic displays showcasing French culture.
What we can see here, and I'm here for more than a week, and wherever you come and go, you see that the lights are on green. The preparations are going very well. The stage is set.
And finally, in a related matter, on Saturday, protesters in Paris rallied against the participation of Israeli athletes in the 2024 Summer Olympics. Demonstrators waved Palestinian flags and held signs reading "Ban Israel" and "Genocide is not an Olympic event." They criticized what they see as a double standard, noting that Russian athletes faced bans following the Ukraine invasion, while Israeli athletes continued to participate despite the ongoing Gaza conflict. The International Islamic Forum, meanwhile, has called for protest at the IOC headquarters in Lausanne and the UN in Geneva, urging a ban on Israeli participation in the Paris Games starting July 26th.
It's very shocking Israeli athletes' participation in Olympics, especially when we know what has been happening for 8 months in Gaza. There are dozens of young Palestinian athletes who will never be able to participate in the Olympic Games. They should blame Israel for that, and the international community. I think that Israel allows itself to behave like this because the international community has only been giving it little slaps on the wrist for decades.
And with this, ladies and gentlemen, our news bulletin comes to a close. Thank you for tuning into our channel. For more updates, you can always check our social media platforms. That's it for me and the rest of the team. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye.